Hello and a warm welcome to Rajya Sabha TV's fortnightly show, The Pulse. I'm NEELU. As the nation celebrates the 69th year of Indian Republic, we take a look at what are our substantial achievements in the last 7 decades have been and what have been the high points. How transformed are we as a country, and most significantly, where are we actually lagging behind, and which are the milestones we've missed in this long journey of growth and maturity. For more on this, joining me are some very credible voices. Tully, veteran author, popularly known as the India correspondent of BBC, someone who's chronicled the rise of India very closely. Next to him is Uday Mahurkar, deputy editor, India Today, amateur historian, who's also seen the rise of Narendra Modi since 1987 very closely. Next to him is Dr. Saradindu Mukherji, academician and historian from the Indian Council of Historical Research. And next to him is Pavan Varma, renowned author, columnist and a former diplomat. And also joining us is Dr. Narendra, Rajya Sabha MP, economist, educationist and public policy expert. And also joining us on the Skype is award-winning film maker Rakeysh Omprakash Mehra. I welcome all these panelists, and I'm also joined by a vibrant set of audience which comprises of the voices of New India, that's the youth, and also some mature faces who've seen India growing for the last so many decades. I welcome all of you on The Pulse, and as the name of the program suggests, over the next 60 minutes, we'll try to catch the pulse of this 70-year-old India. But before we start the program, let's take a look at how India has changed since 1950 as far as some of the social and economic indicators are concerned. How is India of 2018 different from the nascent India of 1950? Take a look. As India turns into a mature republic, 70 years' journey has been that of a free democratic country with many challenges. From political arena to the social life, Indians have witnessed major changes. No doubt, life in several rural parts of the country are yet to get basic facilities like water and electricity. But it is also a fact that many cities are now being compared with New York or Bangkok. What's the difference between India of 1950 and India of 2018? Literacy in India is a key for socio-economic progress, and the Indian literacy rate has grown from 12% in 1950 to 74% according to the latest census. The total population in India was estimated at 359 million in the year 1950, but has now swelled up to 1,299 million. India's food grain production has more than doubled over the decades that followed colonial rule to a record 264 million tons in the fiscal year 2014. During the decades that followed the colonial rule, India's economy in absolute terms has expanded to 57 lakh crore from a mere 2.7 lakh crore. And the nation's foreign exchange reserves have crossed $300 billion, given the economy firepower to fight external shocks. Life expectancy in India is estimated to have gone up from 31 years in 1947 to 68 years according to the latest figures. So it's a long journey which the Indian Republic has traversed from a nascent stage to a now 70-year-old nation. My first question to Mr. Tully. You've seen India rising very, very closely. You've chronicled, you've written books. If I were to ask you to sum up India's journey in just a few lines, what would you really say, how the journey has been?
Well, I'd say it's impossible to do that.
Okay.
Because it's such a varied journey. So many achievements, so many problems not resolved. But I would say the one thing I think which is really important is that India, unlike almost every other developing nation, has remained a democracy except for 18 months of the emergency. And a huge achievement is that time and again elections have been held at all levels of society, from parliament down to the panchayat.
Right.
And elections have not been disputed.
Okay,
and that's crucially important.
Right. So according to you, this is one of the biggest achievements which one can recall in this 70 years of journey. Mr. Pavan Varma, the very fact that since 1950, since India turned republic, we've seen elections after elections. Some 16 elections have happened, and the change of government has happened through a constant ballot process. Has the democracy really deepened, according to you, in these 70 years?
Let's not forget that we were part of an exceptionally incorrigible hierarchical society, where notions of egalitarianism and equality were relatively alien. And while these have not completely gone, this inequality, the fact that we embraced democracy and that democracy survived as an institution is, I think, one of our great achievements in the 70 years that we've traversed.
Right. Mr. Mahurkar, how strengthened really is the parliamentary setup when we talk about the constitution and the kind of causes it espouses, a secular, a democratic republic, speaking for the rights and the equality of the people? How would you really look at the parliamentary system?
I think stronger measures are needed to stop defection.
Okay.
Defection of MLAs particularly, you know.
This is a gap area, you're saying?
It's a gap area.
Okay.
And there's something has to be done about it, you know. So, you know, when a party comes in majority, it is the party which should rule. A party which has secured less number of seats can't become the ruling party.
Right.
There has to be some mechanism there. But again, adding to what they are saying, I think there are lots of things to be proud about for India at 69.
Which achievement would you say has been the greatest?
There are many. I think the White Revolution, the Green Revolution, I think our missile program. I mean, there are n number of things which we can be proud about. But the two things where we have really, I would call it a major miss, you know, is that in spite of the 1991 reforms, we couldn't tackle the problem of poverty, you know.
Right.
And in some way that is linked to corruption also.
Okay.
So corruption and poverty remain two major challenges before the country, even after 69 years.
Right. You made an important point, Professor Mukherji. What Mr. Mahurkar is saying, we've really seen two completely different eras as far as the economic policies are concerned. One was the pre-91 era and one was post-91, post-liberalization era. But despite the GDP growth, besides all the robust policies which came in, why do you think was the pace of growth so lackadaisical?
Yeah. First thing first, I agree with all the panelists that Indian parliamentary system has been doing really well, you know.
Okay.
In the sense that unlike England, the parliamentary system is about 700 years old, you know. It started very late. And keeping in mind the population, the complexities, we have done a very good job, except emergency and once in a while the
But emergency was an aberration in this entire 70 years journey.
But I think we have left far behind. That's one thing. As far as other things, yes, we have a lot of things to be proud of. But what pulls us back is the agricultural sector.
Okay.
Because still about 66% of India's people live on agriculture, you know. And as students of peasants' history, we have seen that while things are changing, a lot of these rural people have mobiles, they have automobiles, you know, things like that. Yet, at some level, especially the lowest of the rural society, the marginal farmers, say people with less than 5 acres of land, then agricultural laborers without any land.
Okay.
And it is these people who migrate to the towns, you know.
So this is one focus area which needs more attention according to you. In fact, as far as the economic policies are concerned, I'll take this question to Dr. Narendra Jadhav. Dr. Jadhav, how will you really take stock of the things from the economic prism? Like I said, two eras, one which was pre-91 and the other one was post-91. But the pace of growth has really been very slow. As far as the unfolding of the reforms has been concerned, it has been very slow.
Well, first of all, I want to see it not in terms of pre-91 and post-91. One has to take a historical perspective and look at India's growth story. For 100 years before India achieved independence, the growth rate of Indian economy was 0%. That means completely flat for about 100 years. We became independent in 1947, and in 1951, we embarked on the planned economic development. Now, for the first 35 years, from 1951 to 1985, roughly speaking, for first 35 years, what happened was the growth rate averaged about 3.5%, which was then popularly called the Hindu rate of growth. While the growth rate was at 3.5%, the population growth was 2.1% or 2.2% per year, which meant that the per capita income or the standard of living was growing at a measly rate of only 1.3% per year, at which rate it would have taken India about 59 years to double our standard of living, to double our per capita income. That brings us to the 1991. 1991 was a watershed year because in that year, India faced an unprecedented macroeconomic crisis. Our foreign exchange reserves had dwindled to a level of less than $1 billion, and we were on a brink of a default. India has always had an impeccable track record of honoring all our external obligations. But in 1991, we came perilously close to a default. After 1991 crisis, we ushered in a completely different set of reforms which are abbreviated as liberalization, part privatization and globalization. We have not looked back after that. Just look at the growth rate. From 1992 to 2002, first 10 years of reform, our growth rate averaged 6%. 2002 to 2005, our growth rate averaged 8%. 2005 to 2008, our growth rate actually averaged more than 9%. And after 2008, there was a major crisis in the world, what is called global meltdown. After that, the growth rate slowed, and now we are again recovering. Today, we are about to become the fastest growing country in the world. So we have really come a long way in this last 7 decades of our growth story.
So we've come a long way, and the journey has not ended. We still have to traverse many, many roads on this path. In fact, Dr. Jadhav, I'll come back to you on which are the gap areas as far as the economic policies are concerned, the reforms are concerned. Let me go across to Omprakash, Mehra. Rakeysh, what, according to you, has been the journey? What have been the real achievements? You've seen Bollywood closely. We've seen films from all eras, right from 1950s to 60s. We've seen decades after decades the way Bollywood has depicted India. So how would you really encapsulate the journey of Indian Republic in the last 7 decades?
Rather than counting achievements, we have to see what lies ahead of us. And that is where we need to bring the focus back. Yes, we have a great parliamentary system. We have an amazing democracy. But can we improve the quality of that democracy? Can we improve the people who sit in the parliament? Can we improve their track record and their criminal record? I'm afraid I'm saying that. So there needs to be a paradigm shift from rhetoric to something more practical. As far as the term you've used, Bollywood, I differ to, I don't agree with the term Bollywood. So as far as Indian cinema is concerned, we have always kind of been a mirror of a society. We have reflected when we got independence, there was cinema of hope. There were world-class cinema being made. Indian movies were winning awards in festivals all around the world, whether it was Berlin or Cannes, because people had hope in their eyes. A nation was born. But soon that turned out to be a myth. There was joblessness. We lost a first prime minister. We had a drubbing with China. There was Bengal famine. There was Maharashtra drought. And so we gave birth to a cinema of escapism.
But now when you look back, Rakeysh, my question to you is that now on the cinematic platform, the way India is performing, now when you sit and look back, you really feel that you are contented when you look back at the Indian cinema, the way it has performed in the last 7 decades?
No, that's what I was trying to tell you. It's not about performance here. It's about the reflection.
Okay.
There's a larger question out here about the country, about my country.
Okay.
And so the cinema always reflected what was going on.
Mm-hmm.
So if I keep aside the cinema of the last 5 years, or say last 10 years, 7-8 years,
okay,
the country went through dark ages, and so did the cinema.
Okay.
We gave birth to a star system and things like that. We moved away from content, and we believed more in song and dance. And that was not because of anything, because people really wanted to escape the harshness of life.
Okay.
So they wanted to get into this black room where at least they could fool themselves.
Right. You raised some very important questions, Rakeysh, and you spoke about the reflection. Now, I'll take these questions to this young crowd which is there in my studio. Just give who's going to speak now? Yes. Are you happy with the way India has been projected globally as well as domestically? The kind of projections which you see of India, the kind of perception which we had earlier was it was a poor country, it was a land of snake charmers. I'm sure Mr. Tully would agree with the kind of projections which were there earlier in India, that it's the land of snake charmers. Do you think we have moved way ahead?
Surely agree with this, and adding to this, like first elections when we had, we were said that questions were raised, speculations were made that will we be able to survive as a democracy? Will we be able to fulfill our first elections in a planned manner we were planning it to be?
But you belong to a generation who actually doesn't have any memories of what the independent struggle has been all about. So you are the children of dawn, not the midnight children, right?
Sure, I'm not midnight children, but we are like, we have read that, we have we haven't lived that, but we do know that. But as you asked, as of now, asking about as of now, we really have moved forward, and we are coming up and setting ourselves at global stage. That's a point of admittance. But education, which is one thing which should have been looked upon, won't say completely left out, but this has been one thing.
It's an ignored area. That's what neglected area you would say.
It's a grey area till date.
Any other point? Anybody has to raise? Yes, go ahead.
I want to raise the topic of women empowerment. What women empowerment is really.
Okay.
Because I can't find any girl who is roaming at night, and this is not the reality. Maybe it may be in the reports or in the papers, but it is not in the reality.
So according to you, the actual woman empowerment is still not a reality.
My name is Abdullah Baksh. You are talking about social indicators. Ma'am, there is one very important area, that is grey area, I would like to raise about. Sir, the problem of insurgency. During the independence, there was no armed revolution. Although there was a struggle in Maharashtra and Andhra Pradesh for their statehood, but after the demise of Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister, we have seen a lot of insurgencies has been emerging out there. 1967 Naxalbari, then Kashmir. So, sir, what is your take about the problem of insurgency that India has taken about? Because the huge defense budget has been spent on them, and we have hardly get any result from that.
So these are the questions which are being raised by the new India, I would say. These are the voices. The girls are worried about the women empowerment. They don't feel safe. Health is a concern. Education is a concern. He said insurgency. So I would say security and law and order, you're saying, is an issue. Mr. Varma, I would like to start from you. How worrisome are these factors when you talk about Indian Republic's journey?
You know, one thing in a democracy you must do is to honestly draw up a balance sheet.
Okay.
There is much that we have to be proud of. Right. And we mentioned one of them, which is our vibrant democracy.
Right.
Our unity as a nation. There were those who doubted it. It was said whether India will survive as one nation.
Right. One of the authors said that centrifugal forces will leave the nation apart.
Yes. Well, we have survived as a nation. There has been economic progress as well. But at the same time, we must remember that after this journey, India is still the country with the largest number of the abjectly poor in the world.
Right.
We must remember that India is still the country with the largest number of people who can't read and write.
Right.
We must remember that India still has more malnutrition children than even sub-Saharan Africa.
Right.
That is as far as the dividends of economic growth have reached or not reached the bulk of the population.
Yeah.
And there is a problem of inequality.
Right.
An access to equal opportunity.
Right.
Secondly, as far as democracy is concerned, I think while we are proud to be democratic, there is no doubt that we need reforms. We need, first of all, to break the nexus between unaccounted money and politics.
Right.
And so many reforms that have been suggested are pending, but no action seems to be taken.
Right.
We need to stop the criminalization of politics, where again electoral reform is pending. Thirdly, in the area of governance, I think that we really need some introspection.
Okay.
Where governance thus far has been suboptimal. It may have achieved high GDP growth rates, but especially at the level of the government, deliverables are poor, monitoring is weak, and the benefits don't accrue.
Right.
So, primary health and primary education, these two areas come specially into focus where governance is concerned.
Right. Mr. Tully, what according to you is the basic reason? Do we see these antitheses, you know, two opposite poles where you have a rising middle class of about 300 million people, and at the same time there are people in abject poverty. Despite all the reforms, things have not been rolling the way, the pace at which they should be rolling. What according to you is the reason, and where does the government really need to work upon?
Well, I think first of all I would raise one point about what Pavan said, and I'm always making this point. You know, India is always said to be the largest number of illiterate people, the largest number of people below the poverty line. But India is also the second largest country in the world and has a huge young population. And whilst I would not in any way disagree that it's bad, the figures are not good figures, I would also say if you can do the calculation, which I cannot, if you take the rise in population and the rise in literacy, or the rise in the age at which people die, if you put those two figures together, an enormous number of people have been lifted out of poverty, an enormous number of people have been made literate.
Right.
But having that, I agree entirely with what Pavan said. I think the most glaring problem is governance and the inability of the government to deliver.
Right.
I think this delivery problem is a huge problem, and I think that's why, for instance, yes, more money should be spent on health, but no point in throwing it down the drain.
Right.
So I think that is the major problem. And there's just one more thing I'd say about that. I was born in this country in the British Raj. I don't know that much about what it was like there, but I have read about it. But one thing which strikes me time and again, and I've written and spoken about this time and again, is you haven't properly really grown out of the colonial system of administration. And this is what's holding you back, or one of the factors, because a colonial system of administration is really only to do with law and order, not much else. But you need an administrative system which is flexible enough, fluid enough to cope with these problems of development.
You raised an important point. Mr. Mahurkar, the narrative which Mr. Tully is talking about, and we saw an era which talked about policy paralysis, things were not moving. Without getting into the politics of it, do you think that post-2014, the narrative has changed? When you have a Prime Minister who talks about a vision of new India, he talks about taking India leads ahead and projecting it as a superpower. He says that red tape will be replaced with a red carpet. So do you think that the narrative is moving the way it should be? At least some beginning has been made?
If you leave aside health and education, there is a sea change which is happening right now over the last 3 years. I mean, I've written a book, Marching with a Billion, on the 3 years of this government. So I had the occasion to speak to people, research things. I think there is a big change. One, there is a very concerted effort to fight poverty. Say Jan Dhan.
Right.
And how many of us knew that about 40% of the population is outside the canvas of the banking system.
Right.
Correct. So this 30 crore bank accounts, they make a lot of sense, you know.
Okay.
Then how many people, or how many of us knew that about 5 crore families or 25 crore people ate food cooked on chulhas? Today 3 crore families have been covered already under Ujjwala. So these are very giant
steps. So there is a
steps.
concerted effort to move towards a poorer class
mudra,
for the welfare of the people.
You know, when you talk about jobs,
right?
There is a debate about jobs.
Right.
Yes, there is a problem of jobs in niche area, you know.
Okay.
But if you take mudra,
right,
and talk about self-employment, you know, mudra loan, about 4 lakh rupees have gone to small people like carpenters, ironsmiths, you know. Okay. About 9 to 9 crore people, 4 lakh crore worth of loans, and there were small loans, 50,000, 1 lakh. Repayment rate is also very accurate so far, you know. And I mean, even if half of them have employed one person, then 4 crore jobs have been created, you know.
Okay. So in the audience, we have a number of elderly group people who are sitting there. Just give them the mic. What is the most worrisome factor for you as an elderly? You've seen India growing over the years. What, according to you, is the biggest miss and the achievement?
Okay. I'm Dr. Kakkad. I retired from Maulana Azad Medical College here. I was an anatomist.
Okay.
And obviously, in that profession, I would like to ask our government, how come the job opportunities to the young doctors is not enough so that they look for greener pastures in other countries?
Okay.
You know, there are so many of them who really deserve and who don't get, and that's why they say, okay, let's go abroad.
Okay.
So that is one thing which is somewhere it's missing.
So you feel that the joblessness is one factor which is really worrying you at the moment. Next to you is another lady. You want to talk, ma'am? What, according to you,
is Mrs. Khanna?
Yes. What, according to you, is the biggest worry at the moment, despite all the technological and the scientific advancements?
The education part.
Okay.
The schools are charging so much fees. The amount of education the children are getting, no moral values, no moral system, the way they are taught in the school, their behavior and all, this all matters to take the society.
Okay. So you raised an important point. Next to you is a gentleman. Sir, introduce yourself.
I'm Hardev Chauhan.
Now, when you see the journey of India as how the society has progressed, like ma'am was talking about the moral fiber, the moral fabric which has been actually punctured, do you really feel that there has been a change which is for the good or for the bad? How do you really see it?
I totally agree with her that moral towards that there is no attention perhaps given nationally. And then one more thing, that tolerance levels are steadily going down, declining very badly.
Okay.
So that is one area of concern. I think everywhere, in all areas, actually it is affecting our progress.
Okay. Just pass on the mic. Yes, sir. You want to say something?
The facilities which are being provided by the government doesn't reach the hardly 23%.
Okay.
And the prices are so high that they cannot meet both ends.
Okay.
So what is the reform government is doing on it?
Okay. Pavan Varma, you would like to answer his question?
No, I think that while progress has been made in many areas, and you chose the date 2014, so we are not going to politicize this debate.
No, of course
not. But
not.
on the other hand, I think it would be myopic on our part.
Okay.
Not to take into account distress which is visible on the ground.
Okay.
I can tell you, for instance, in agriculture.
Right.
We've had 1.7% growth after 2 successive years of drought. You have farmers committing suicide. You have farmers committing suicide because of a problem of plenty, because while their output has grown, there's no market.
Absolutely.
They are not getting remunerative prices. In Mandsaur, they had to be fired upon 5 farmers died in Madhya Pradesh. So there is a sector, and that accounts, as you said, for 66% of the people.
Right.
If you don't create jobs outside agriculture, they are underemployed or employed only in that sector which is not productive enough.
Right.
So
You raised an important point.
Area.
Let me go across to a few young people who are here. How profitable or how lucrative will you really say for New India is agriculture? How many of you here sitting here want to really opt for an agricultural profession or something you want to do? Maybe for example, you want to go do farming, something in agriculture. How many of you are interested?
Not in current circumstances. Otherwise, they won't.
I just, Mr. Varma, let me just see how many of you raise your hands. Okay, give him the mic, please. Yes, okay, speak.
This is Neelam. Even my plan is like, when we see the India, like it has achieved through the green revolution, the food sufficiency, but the kind of food we are getting, it's like the organic market is so costly. The general people cannot afford.
Okay.
Our team, like we have a team here in Delhi and elsewhere in Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, those who are dreaming of providing a healthy food. It's not organic, but a healthy food. Organic itself is not healthy as such, but that's a very, very lucrative and in the sense very, very, what do you call it? It's a very prospective.
So you want to experiment something in organic farming, I believe,
exactly,
right?
And it's working quite well.
Yes, there's a boy who wants to speak to you. Behind you, yes.
Hi, I am Abdul Basit. I work with senior citizens. Actually, we are talking about jobs, so I will relate to it. After acquiring an MBA degree, I would like to go to farming because the amount of stress of not having a good job nowadays among youngsters is very much. So why not to go to that sector, which is actually one of our primary sectors of our country. So as I said, we would like to go there. We want to do some experiments and would like to come up with new things so that people are becoming more and more healthier. Because health
so basically, you need an assurance from the government how that sector can become more profitable, more lucrative, so that you can earn good money. I was expecting someone from the crowd who's going to say, I want to become an astronaut, I want to become a cosmonaut, but I'm not hearing those kind of voices at all.
The government is doing well in it, but I think they should educate the persons in agriculture and doctorate sector in the interiors. They don't want to go to the interiors. So first they should be trained, and they should train the farmers as well as the local public so that they can at least have first aid.
Okay. All the people who are sitting here, I want to see hands raising up. When I'm going to ask you, do you find campaigns like Digital India, Skill India, Startup India, Stand Up India, do you really find them appealing as a youth? You're the voice of the new India. You really find them appealing? You feel that you have something to go forward to with these campaigns? Feebly the hands are going up. Can't see any of the hands.
Actually, yes. I think we have started, but we started a bit late. Actually, I want to raise that point that we started Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, the Ladli scheme or the Skill India. After having this current Prime Minister, I guess now we are focusing on the basic things on which we should have been working after 1950. Like Swachh Bharat. That is a necessity. And now
I can see Mr. Mahurkar smiling now. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think we have started a little bit late, but now because these things are coming and more and more people are getting educated.
Okay, now let me go across to, I'll come back to you, Dr. Mukherji. Rakeysh, if you can hear me, like what people are saying, that there are a lot of things which are happening now and they should have started post 1950. How would you really agree with this when you look at the processes, the procedures which are being adopted by the government and also the society in general? How would you really look at the things?
I completely disagree with the comment that they should have started in 1950. We should have got our independence in 1850. It doesn't work like that. The way it works is that to build a nation, that the people of the country, they work hard, they work on quality of life, everybody comes together, goes beyond caste and religion, and they build a nation together. They take pride in their country, they take pride in their national anthem and their flag, leaving the rhetorics out. We have to, moving forward, build a level playing field. There's too much of disparity. It all starts with the family you are born in, and your future and the future of the country is written right there. Absolutely there, with the kind of school you will go to, with the kind of education you'll get. Are you going to go to a municipal school or a private education? And that's where you have divided the country. That is the divide we need to work on towards now. And that's where the quality will increase. Each political party, irrespective of where they come from, have to be very, very careful and have a moral obligation to the country and the people of this country to put in the best candidates, not necessarily the one who's going to win on the rhetorics, but the one who's most qualified for the job. And whichever party puts the maximum best candidates is going to do the best for the country. Even the people of this country, we have been speaking about democracy, and I so very agree with all the comments, and especially made by Tully, is that our democracy is something which we have to be really proud of.
Okay.
How do we improve that? Once we improve that, everything else will improve automatically, whether it's agriculture sector, whether you want astronauts or scientists, you want better movies, you want better entertainment, sports, more money, rate of growth, 3.7%, 6.7%.
Right.
All that will happen on its own.
Okay.
How do we improve the quality of this democracy?
Right. So you raised an important point. Dr.
I'm really happy. I'm a very proud Indian.
Okay.
And I'm so happy living in the era right now. And we don't need to get into rhetoric and thank the government. It is their job to do their job, what they're doing. It is their job to give us a clean country. It is our jobs to facilitate the government to give us a better country.
Right.
So let's not just talk about congratulate each other on the things we do.
Right.
It's moving forward.
Yes,
I think we need to create equality. There's too much of disparity.
Right.
73%
Rakesh.
of the wealth is held by one person.
Yes, Mr. Mahurkar.
I agree with Rakeysh, Omprakash, Mehra that the quality of people in the parliament, in assemblies have to improve. And I think the time has come for the country to think about an education minimum qualification for an MP or an MLA.
Okay.
I think that is very, very important.
Right.
It is a very tough step.
See the kind of applause you've already got by raising that point. I'll come back to you, Dr. Mukherjee. Yeah.
You know, I would like to just say something to that.
Yes.
I think that's a dangerous step myself.
Yeah. Okay.
I think because a person has had a bad education, it's not his fault.
Okay.
And this is a democracy.
Okay.
And one of the beauties of this democracy was that it was founded on the basis of one person, one vote. And any attempt to put a qualification of education, property, or anything was resisted.
Okay. Dr. Mukherjee, you differ or agree with what Mr. Tully is saying?
Let me add.
Just let him speak.
It's a stark choice, you know.
Okay.
I mean, nothing is 100%, you know.
Okay. Okay.
It's a stark
yes.
choice.
Dr. Mukherjee, make your point.
No, we need a more accountable legislature, you know. Whether in a democracy, already 70 years into it, adult manhood franchise. Now, whether we can insist on academic qualification for a legislature is very difficult. I don't think that will work, you know. That also sounds very bad. Now, second thing is monitoring, as Mr. Varma pointed. Monitoring of bureaucracy is very important, you know.
Okay, so monitoring of
people join bureaucracy with a lot of idealism.
Right.
But then some people maintain a good standard, some people fall behind, you know.
Right.
And what has happened, exceptions apart, there's so much of politics in patronizing, say, compliant bureaucrats that honest bureaucrats can't function well.
Okay. You know. In fact, I will pick on from what you have said.
Things have undergone a total change in the last 3 years.
Right. No.
On this aspect, especially the central services.
What Dr. Mukherjee is raising is an important point that, you know, a bureaucracy which has not been accountable.
You know, the good officers must be given opportunity to work, you know.
What I'm saying is that there is a complete change in the last 3 years.
No.
Which we have to appreciate.
Just let him complete his point. Yes.
Yeah. Lot of good things, good proposals, measures have been taken last 3-4 years, you know. Now this got to be, government has got to stick to it, you know. The point is that people in state governments are run by all kinds of politicians. I don't want to name them, but some states have a very, very bad reputation for bad governance, like say West Bengal. Now there, the loyalty to the politician, to the chief minister matters most. This has to be stopped.
Right. Now you raise a very important point. The politics of patronage. Unaccountable bureaucracy, and a lot of it has got to do with the kind of corruption which we have seen in the society. How serious is the issue in the current context, Mr. Varma, according to you, as far as corruption is concerned?
I think that bureaucrats are like litmus paper.
Okay.
They take on the color of the political masters.
Okay.
Now, if that is the case, I don't believe 2014 is a great watershed.
Okay.
Governments are a continuum.
Okay.
And bureaucrats need a system where there can be far more impartial and objective accountability.
Okay. So, let me see how many of you agree. Bureaucrats are like litmus paper. They change the color according to the government which is in. But can they really come out clean? How many of you feel so? Some of them, not all. Okay. That's a real test. Okay, that's a real test, and that's why he's saying it's a litmus test.
Can I make a point?
Yes, Mr. Tully.
This assembly is ignoring a basic fact that when this government came,
right,
it was dismantled the transfer posting Raj in Delhi. I agree.
Okay.
It's a two-tier system.
Okay.
So, you have to,
but now
see
we are
that
replacing it by loyalty to an ideology. There's a whole screening process.
Okay, let's not get into the ideology bit.
No.
Yes.
Why not? You are talking of bureaucrats.
I don't want to take this discussion on the political line, actually.
But you have, because you keep creating this 2014 divide.
There is a 360-degree selection procedure which has been introduced for bureaucrats, which is of course has got a flip side also,
Okay.
But it is resulting in good bureaucrats being posted in Delhi.
Okay.
I'm talking about central government services,
Mostly from Gujarat.
Okay. Let me.
No. Gujarat
Let me take this question to Rakeysh Omprakash Mehra. How he sees the bureaucracy. Do you really feel that the bureaucracy is still very unaccountable and they are actually functioning in a sphere of their own? What is your perception about the bureaucracy? You also have your regular run-ins with the bureaucracy?
This is a huge country, very complex country.
Okay.
And if not for a very efficient bureaucracy, it won't be running. It will come to a full stop tomorrow morning. Yes, there's a lot to be done. And somewhere the bureaucracy will also reflect the government in power as such, because they are a continuum, like it was said earlier. And governments come and go, parties come and go.
But the bureaucrats remain.
They have to be absolutely true to your job. I think the fear of that the politician is their master has to be taken away.
Okay.
We need to rethink that.
Okay.
And we need to get out of the colonial system of where it was yes minister.
Okay.
So that will bring a sea change. And bureaucrats who are the bureaucrats? They are my brothers, they are my sisters, they are my uncles, they are me. Why do we keep pointing a finger at somebody every time we talk about something? Why do we keep taking credits and keep putting down people year-on-year basis based on the government? Right now we are talking about the idea of India, which is bigger than all of us.
Okay.
It should cut across party lines. It should cut across rhetorics. Let's just all come together as a nation and how do we make it better?
Okay.
Is not by pointing fingers.
Okay. So let's all come together.
Conversations.
Let's all of us.
Yeah.
Right. So let's all of us come together and take the idea of India forward. Rakeysh, thank you so much for joining on the program. I know you're in a hurry. Thank you so much for joining on the program. Now, let me take across this question to the young India here. What is the idea of India for you? You are a generation, a lot of you who haven't seen the freedom struggle. What is the idea of new India according to you? Do you really get convinced with what Prime Minister Narendra Modi is talking about? An idea of new India. Let me have some young voices before I come to you. Yes.
The question, education from this side.
Yes. Yes, sir. Please, you can raise your questions with Dr. Mukherji also. Yes, go ahead, go ahead.
I just want to say one thing, that why it is always said like 2014 was the year of change. Like it is not that from 2014 India was built from a scratch. So we have to see the history of India.
Okay, so forget 2014. Now you tell me what is your idea of India?
India just like our Prime Minister said somewhere, that India is the teacher of all countries, all nations.
Okay.
So India should have teach the world.
Okay.
It should have teached everything like.
Okay. So Dr. Mukherji, I would like to hear from you on this. How would you really evolve the society now with all the technological advancements are happening with the social media culture, where she herself has pointed out that somewhere we are losing the culture, and at the same time we are at the cusp of a change which is so much looking forward globally. How would you really deal with the societal problems at this point of time?
Look, I think in a country like India, we carry a historical baggage. Our school education needs to be drastically overhauled.
Okay.
Drastically overhauled.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, I go back to the pre-2014 age, we had horrible textbooks. We have dealt with textbooks all our life. All of us are dealt with, And something needs to be done. I think we need a new set of textbooks, especially history, because history shapes the mind and history creates the maximum controversy.
Okay.
So those books are there. So let's ask one question. Now, the quality of spoken English, written English also growing very fast. We have some very, very good, outstanding writers in English like Mr. Pavan, Varma and elsewhere. But there is a total decline of the local languages.
Okay.
People can't speak Hindi properly. People can't speak Bengali properly. People can't speak Punjabi, you know.
Okay.
And Sanskrit, decline of Sanskrit unfortunately started when Nurul Hasan was the education minister. And that is the key, you know. Because people earlier, at least in our generation, our father's generation, they used to study Sanskrit language, you know.
Okay.
And that given a very solid, you know, intellectual background.
Right.
So with the result, since they don't Sanskrit, they don't know the mother tongue. And so much of emphasis to learn English language. So they may speak good English language, they may write well, but they get cut off from the roots, you know.
Yes,
with the result,
yes, Mr. Varma.
People who write well in English and speak well in English remain a minuscule segment of the entire population.
Right.
Exactly.
And what is happening is we seem to be privileging English while neglecting
the other languages.
Great legacy of our own cultures in our own languages.
Right.
Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee once said that it's a myth that the British left India as a result of the freedom movement.
Right.
They left because they could not bear anymore the massacre of the English language.
Right.
They left.
But Mr. Varma.
What I'm making is, we have to respect our languages.
Right. But
and let me just add from there.
Yes.
We have to respect each other. India is a country of many faiths, of many diversities. Unless Indians continue that tradition of Shastrarth, of debate, of dialogue, where you listen as much as you assert within a civilized framework, you cannot hold up the idea of India.
But as we were talking about languages, and you held an important point, Dr. Mukherji, and you also said that we are losing that culture where people are not talking in their own language. For example, Bengali is not spoken. Sanskrit is a lost asset completely. But does it make a difference when you have a Prime Minister who's talking in Hindi, addressing, for example, you hear Prime Minister Modi on international platforms where he's speaking in Hindi? Do these things or do these events really make a difference in the projection of India also?
No, I don't think that's a major thing at all. The Prime Minister going and speaking in Hindi any more than the French Prime Minister coming and speaking in French.
Right.
Yeah. I think what Pavan said, though, is absolutely right. Opinion has got about that you have to have English if you're going to get on in any way. Now, there's a measure of truth in that. But the result of it is dire. Any government, state government you find, children are not going to the school there because it is a state language school. But they're flocking to the most appalling private schools, many of which were hardly schools at all, simply because they believe they're going to learn English. And somehow or other, it has to be got across that this is a country with a huge tradition of bilingualism. I wish I had the same bilingual ability as Indians
you
have.
Speak Hindi equally well.
No, I don't. No, I don't.
Okay.
Pavan would correct you if you said that.
Okay. Now let me go across to Raj Mohan. He's a singer, a writer who's joining us from Amsterdam, Holland. Raj Mohan, I welcome you on the program. And as you already know, we are discussing about India's achievements in the last 7 decades. What is the perception about India when you sit in Amsterdam and talk about India? You're really going to give us the real picture, what one feels about the real India today.
The real India today, my dear, my goodness, a lot of things. Most important, of course, our ancestors are from there. So there is a huge, big affection, pyar hai, with India, of course.
Mr. Raj Mohan, जो India का perception था कि India internationally is not keeping pace with other countries, with the developed countries. आपके हिसाब से क्या वो perception change हुआ है काफी हद तक?
I think काफी हद तक change हुआ है.
Okay.
You know, India is just what is it, 80 years or something independent. And now the Western countries, they want that India should become within a couple of days on the same modern level as they are.
Okay.
And they developed it in 150 years, you know. So उसमें थोड़ा time तो लगेगा, मगर I think India is doing great. as an economical power, and they are showing their best, trying their level best to keep a very good democracy in the country.
I'll come back to you. Mr. Pavan Varma, foreign policy is also a very important issue, which if you see the journey in the last 70 years, it has been coming up, coming down, and then now we see suddenly it's a very aggressive pitch which India is making. You've been a former diplomat yourself. How would you really comment?
Assertive, I think.
Assertive. Yeah. Assertive. Okay. Yes.
No, I think that foreign policies or continuum, like governance, successive governments carry on the basic tenets of foreign policy. Individual leaders can make changes in it and add a greater dynamism and momentum to it. And there is no doubt that Prime Minister Narendra Modi, through his many travels across the globe, has personally invested in projecting an image of India as a country with hope and a country with potential for the future. So having said that, since you're talking of hits and misses, I think one very important pillar of our foreign policy, which was neighborhood first, is in relative disarray. Our relationship with Pakistan, in spite of all the muscular rhetoric with which Prime Minister Modi came to power, is in shambles. Our policy towards Nepal needs definitely another look. Our policy towards China needs, I think what India is lacking, and I want to say this after 70 years without pointing a finger to any one government, is a strategic policy, foreign policy framework. You know, I'll tell you, Pakistan's policy to us is absolutely clear. Explosive aggression and tactical appeasement. India keeps moving between one to the other, not prepared for either. Similarly, China, clear-cut policy, engagement with containment. You contain India, but engage with it. But we are not yet fully prepared with a strategic policy to counter it. So these are the lacunas which are there, but there are also great achievements.
Mr. Tully, these lacunas, why have we not been able to come out with a clear strategic policy as what Mr. Varma is pointing out?
Well, I think there are difficulties. I mean, he knows much more about foreign policy than I do. He's had experience. But I don't quite see it as a continuum. I mean, you've got to have a foreign policy which adjusts. And, you know, I've seen in the years I've been here, huge adjustments in foreign policy in the whole opening up to America and the comparative decline in importance of Russia. But that was in part influenced by the collapse of the Soviet Union. So you've got to have a flexibility. But I would agree about the neighbors. And I want to tell you one thing. I was once told by an Asian Development Bank economist. He said, India is not very good at downsizing with its neighbors. And I think this is something which is very important for India to learn. To treat with more respect, with more delicacy, your smaller neighbors. Now, obviously, Pakistan is a specific problem to which it's not that easy to apply that.
So despite all the strides...
Add something to this foreign policy. Fine. Before a seasoned diplomat, I shouldn't say much, but a couple of things. Relations between India and Israel has taken a new height. That's a very important thing. Though the diplomatic relations were started by Narasimha Rao, but we know what happened in 1947-48. Nehru's government didn't do that. Secondly, Act East policy, India's new relationship based on civilization bonding with the Southeast Asian countries, you know, and especially with Japan. And Japan has a very long history of friendship with India. So these are two important areas. But Pakistan remains a very, very difficult
Pakistan still remains a difficult neighbor.
Neighborhood hard policies. There might have been some misses, but there are quite a few achievements also. You know, China, the way we used to react to China when there used to be intrusions earlier, you know, and now we do. There is a vast difference. Confident India is prepared to take on China the way we have engaged Vietnam, you know, which is a rival to China in the South China Sea, you know. Pakistan, of course, it's not produced the kind of results which we expected, you know. But still, I think, I mean, the way we are tackling Pakistan, we are losing soldiers, no doubt. You know? And I think we need to do something more. But then, I think our response to Pakistan is also very strong as compared to earlier. I mean, this is the impression I carry. And China certainly.
Okay. Okay, we are towards the last lap of the program. Let me get in some voices from the older and the younger generation. 2, 3 of you. What are your expectations from a nation which is 70 years old? Quick points, one by one.
Okay, I want to speak on my dream about a nation,
about
my country. It's like I come from a village from Bihar. When I see the condition of women out there or anywhere else in the India, what I feel is that they're not provided that kind of security that they should have been.
Okay.
Like when I am in Delhi, I do not personally as a girl, I don't want a seat reserved for me in metro or in bus or in train. But what I personally feel or what I want is my security.
Okay.
You know?
Your security. A woman's security. Yes.
My name is Shahid. मैं ये कहना चाह रहा था कि जैसे हम प्रेजेंटली हमारे में ग्राउंड लेवल पर जो मेनली जो टाउन्स हैं या विलेजेस हैं, हमारे यहाँ अवेयरनेस की बहुत ज़्यादा कमी होती है. हमें पता नहीं होता गवर्नमेंट पॉलिसीज़ क्या कर रही है और हमारे तक पहुँचती नहीं है.
Yes, somebody from the older generation. What is your expectation from a nation which is into the 71st year? 69 years Republic के हो गए, 70th year.
I am Arun and 68 years old. I had been seeing many elections.
Okay.
But the government is having multiple party system.
Okay.
Most of the time is wasted for forming legislation and law.
Okay.
It should be reduced. It should come as our constitution is borrowed almost. There should be 2 parties so that the legislature is formed properly and very timely, not time is wasted.
Okay. So let me give the last word of the program to Sir Mark Tully. Yes. Mr. Tully, what do you have to really say before I wind up the show?
Well, I don't deserve the last word, but you know, I'd like to go back to what Pavan said about what India stands for.
Okay.
And I'd like to see an India which can show the world that people of many languages, many different religions can have their differences, can discuss them in the spirit of the argumentative Indian, and show the world how diversity can also be unity.
Absolutely. This is a well said point, and I think a very significant point he's made. So there is no doubt that India has taken giant strides as far as various fields we discussed in the program have been concerned. All the advancements, technological advancements, foreign policy, social indices, all have been worked upon. But yes, the journey is still on. We have grown from a nascent nation to a developed nation. We are on course, but a lot of the unfinished task is still left. And I think each one of us have to contribute to this growth story. Thank you all my panelists, Mark Tully, Uday Mahurkar, Dr. Mukherji, Pavan Varma, and this vibrant set of audience. I'm really thankful to all of you for joining on the program. And I'd also like to thank Mr. Raj Mohan, who's joined us from Amsterdam to share his thoughts. Thank you all. Goodbye, and thanks for watching.